Hello and good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for attending. I thought we'd make a start just to allow a few people to join, so a little bit later than 11. If I get a little bit sidetracked, it's possibly because I'm letting in a few more people, but do bear with me. And once again, thanks for joining. So we'll make a start. I do have the chat window running, so if you've got any problems, you can't hear me, or you can't see the screens, do let me know through chat. Otherwise, we'll make a start. So I thought I'd start today's session with basically a stat on data. We're certainly being bombarded with tons and tons of data. So this is, I think, quite an incredible stat from the World Economic Forum, which basically is saying by 2025, it's estimated that we're going to end up with 463 exabytes of data, and that's going to be created each day. So that's a huge amount of data that we're likely to be generating. And I think the stat there on 212 million DVDs per day is pretty incredible. So as I think we're all aware, data is only growing. And with that, I think it becomes quite an incredible opportunity with what we can actually do with the data. So again, welcome to the session today. My name is Andy Painter. For those that don't know me, I'm the Regional Manager for Victoria. What I'm planning on covering today is to really look at the benefits of data literacy, actually what data literacy is all about. And I'm also going to present to you where we believe it's a good place, where can you actually get started with it, and just summarize, and then some Q&A if we've got time for that. As I say, probably submitting questions via the chat channel may be the best way to do that. But as I say, this session is very much focused on data literacy and why we believe it's an important topic to be considering and looking at. Just a little bit about Altis. So for those that don't know Altis, we are Australia and New Zealand's largest privately owned data and analytics consultancy. We've been established and running for 22 years now, established in 1998. We're still very much privately owned. Offices across Australia, New Zealand and the UK as well. We're very much vendor independent, so we look for the right solutions for your organizations, irrespective of the software vendor for that. And it's not just us also saying, that. Gartner are also very much backing that up as well. Let me just bear with me. I'm just going to see if I can remove this this annotation. There we go. So yes, very much Gartner also back that up, that we are one of Australia and New Zealand's leading data and analytics providers. Okay, what I wanted to do today is really start by looking at actually the benefits of data literacy. Before we run into what data literacy is all about, what I wanted to do was cover off the benefits of it and why it's an incredibly important current topic to be exploring. There is an extremely good report that's been put out, and a lot of the stats that I'm showing you today are based off of this report. So this report's been authored by Click, Accenture and the Data Literacy Project. I've also put in a link to the report as well, so you can have a look through that in some more detail. But it's a very good report to have a look at to give you some idea of, I guess, the benefits and what data literacy is all about. That report was a cross-industry study of 9,000 employees, so it's quite a wide-ranging study. But I thought what I would do is just start with some of the challenges that it identified, and then look at some of the benefits and where data literacy can help. So challenge one, employees are very much overwhelmed with data, and I think everybody is experiencing that as well. And that's certainly what they found, that 74 of the employees reported feeling overwhelmed or unhappy when working with data, which quite clearly doesn't make for a great working environment, irrespective of whether we're all working remotely or in offices. There is certainly a sense of being overwhelmed with data. And if we go back to the original statistic that I presented there as well, with the volume of data increasing and the opportunities that that data presents, we're likely to see this feeling of being overwhelmed just increasing. Challenge 2. So not only were they overwhelmed with data, but they were also experiencing decreased productivities, as I guess you can well imagine. So 36% reported spending at least 1 hour per week procrastinating over data-related tasks, and that's probably more around not really knowing quite where to start or how to interpret the data. And I think for us, certainly in our experience, that 1 hour a week is probably the minimum that we see. We often see organizations and employees actually, I guess, losing a lot more than just 1 hour a week in productivity. So challenge 3. Challenge 3 there, we've basically got, it's an ongoing daily struggle to use data as well. So as you can see there, 14% of employees reported feeling overwhelmed at least once a day when they would been working with data, and that statistic rises quite significantly to half of employees on a weekly basis. So this isn't just one-off instances where people are trying to understand and make use of data. It's actually an ongoing basis. So it's a pretty big challenge that we've got in front of us to actually resolve. And I think what I found was even more startling was the actual productivity losses that have been calculated, which the report put down at over 100 billion annually. And that's actually just a US figure. So this isn't even a global number. So it's pretty incredible outcome from not really understanding or being able to use data very effectively. And you can see there that the procrastination or not being able to use data can actually lead to stress-related sick leave and people just not being able to work very effectively with that. So I think this probably is a very realistic statistic. So we can see that there is a pretty big opportunity ahead of us. So really then thinking about that the benefits, if we can actually have an uplift in data literacy, then we're also likely to see an uplift in enterprise value. I put a little box there just to show what enterprise value is all about. The report talks very much about enterprise value, so we're not thinking about just the profit and loss of an organization. We're also looking at the value of the organization. But you can see here it's pretty big amount of money that they saw were being achieved by organizations when they were actually addressing data literacy. So those are really the challenges that we're certainly seeing. We can see what those challenges are actually leading to, and then I think most of us will be able to see the benefits of what a good data literacy initiative program can actually help achieve for an organization as well. So I thought what I would do then is actually talk a little bit about what data literacy actually means. So a bit of a description and some examples then, so that you can start to get a sense for what data literacy is all about. Gartner, as normal, are pretty much some of the leaders in the data literacy thought space. They define it as pretty much the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context. We go a little bit further with also thinking about how people can actually argue and challenge with data as well. So it's at one level, I think data literacy is a fairly easy concept to grasp, and it is very much, as I say, focused on that ability to read and write and communicate with data as well. It does also include the ability to understand the data sources that you have as well. and also the tools and techniques that you have available to actually use and interact with your data. So things like data governance, data cataloging, they are also very important tools and aspects of an overarching data literacy program. Now, data literacy as well, we're also seeing is quite critical for what's being termed Industry 4.0. And I know, again, probably a number of you are already aware of Industry 4.0. If you're not, Industry 4.0 is pretty much focused around this, I guess, next wave of an industrial revolution focused on the really the ability of smart devices, IoT devices, sensors, and the massive data that they're going to be generating and then becomes available. And obviously with, again, the increase and range of data, if people are able to interpret and understand how to use it and also report and effectively use it, there's definitely some advantages there. So we'd definitely encourage you all to have a look at Industry 4.0. It's likely to be topics of future webinars for us as well, and we can certainly help advise in that area. But we believe that data literacy is going to be very critical to, I guess, be successful in the Industry 4.0. And I wanted to as well also position that data literacy could be seen and should be seen as a common language of business. And I think if we were to imagine an organization where the marketing department speaks French, the product designers are speaking German, the analytics teams speak Spanish, and no one really speaks a second language, even if that organization was designed with digital in mind, communicating business value and why specific technologies matter is going to be pretty difficult. So how we're seeing a data-driven business function really work, and you do need that level of interaction between business units, again, as we all know. Having the ability to communicate using data as a common language is going to be, again, a crucial thing, and that really can be addressed with data literacy. So putting a bit more, again, of a slant on what do we sort of see as data literacy and what does it mean to Altis? We have a base level training course, sort of a data literacy 101 course, if you like, and that typically would cover things like why data literacy, why it's important, what is it all about. But what we also tend to then train and teach on is really these sort of 4 topics around summarizing data, when summary stats are misleading, the relationship between variables and seasonality. So this, again, I hope will also show what we mean by data literacy. And this, and we'll talk a little bit more about an offer that we've got today around this course. But this is one of the data literacy courses that we're able to run and actually are running across organizations at the moment. So hopefully that's summarized what we consider to be data literacy. It's a growing topic, was identified by Gartner, I think in 2017. So it's still a fairly newish area and topic that people are looking at. So what I wanted to position today as well is also where we believe would be a good way to start. So we'll have a look at the best place, or where we're thinking the best place may be to start. So what I also wanted to introduce today is actually a offering that we have, part of our advisory offering. So this is a data literacy strategy and roadmap offering. But what I'll do is I'll cover some of the key boxes for this framework. And for those that have worked with us previously, this is based on a strategy framework that we use across a number of our different offerings in, I guess, the information management, business intelligence, data strategy piece. But it's very much focused on effectively kicking off a project or initiative, educating on the principles, assessing data literacy, define it. And I'll talk about some of these those three boxes in the middle there. But we very much see that certainly the data literacy isn't just training in isolation. It should be potentially wrapped into more of a strategic effort across an organization. So again, just to say that we've got a strategy framework, data literacy strategy framework in place that we can use on engagements. So looking at some of the key parts that I think are potentially a little bit different to some of the other strategies that we typically run. So the first part that I see and we see is very important is actually getting a baseline measure of where data literacy is in your organization. So this is pretty much assessing the maturity of data literacy. We've created a survey and I've put the link in there to the survey, so you can go and have a go at filling in the survey and seeing where you are personally with your own data literacy journey. You could also answer it on behalf of your organization, again, just to give you a sort of a sense of where you're at. But what I would be proposing, if you're looking on where to start in a data literacy journey, is to actually look at surveying across all of your organization. It doesn't need to be a particularly complicated survey. The survey that we've created covers, it's 20 questions, it covers 4 topics, very much focused on understanding the data literacy maturity and how people are effectively able to read data, how well people are working with data, how well people are able to analyze data, and then data storytelling as well. So the ability, I think, to survey across an organization is important. I'd like to think that you're just going to be able to send a survey out and you'll get 100% response in a very short period of time. That's probably not likely to be the case. So if you are going to survey, you may want to consider actually doing a sort of personal survey, in effect, a short interview with some of your key stakeholders. But that, for me, really, before you start a data literacy initiative, what I would sort of suggest you really want to be doing is understanding the current sort of benchmark and baseline of where you're at. It's very important, I think, if you're going to demonstrate some return on investment in improving your data literacy, that you want to then be able to go back and maybe after 6 months to a year to actually start to resurvey again to see that the data literacy in the organization has moved up. So that's an important aspect. As I say, we've got a survey there that you can certainly use. And again, if people are thinking about surveying, then please do come back to us, either myself or via any of the other regional managers or your Altis contacts, to see how we can help you get started with that. Another key aspect as well, I believe what you should be able to do once you've got your survey data is to begin to build up what I'm referring to as data personas. Now, for those that understand marketing, the marketing world has been using this concept of personas for quite some time to actually be able to identify their types of different types of customers, and therefore understanding the problems and pain points that those customers have. So we're effectively suggesting pretty much to do the same thing, that you build up data personas across your organization, because ultimately not all one-size training or one-size initiative is going to suit everybody in an organization. You're going to have different types or personas in an organization that will need different either training or different initiatives that will help them in their data literacy journey. So I've put some examples there. We've done some level of creating data personas across some of our work and projects. So things like, or people like data champions, data adepts, data learners, and obviously data skeptics as well. I think what you'll find, if you can survey enough people across a large organization, you'll start to see specific groups of people, and they may well then be related to specific roles as well. So some more links there if you want to go and understand how to build personas. Some good links there to guides. Again, it's something very much that Altis can help as part of a standalone engagement or a bigger piece of data literacy work. We can help you build those data personas. And then obviously, once you've understood your level of maturity and really very much where the data literacy gaps are, that's probably going to be a key area then to sort of focus on and understand what initiatives you can actually address some of those data literacy gaps. So examples of some of the, I guess, the things that you can do to fill those gaps. There's obviously training. Training can be provided. As I say, we've got a course that's very much broad-based and could well appeal to a number of people in your organizations. So training for data literacy is a good one. It shouldn't also be underestimated as well. The part of data literacy is also being able to help people actually get access to the data that they require to carry out their day-to-day roles. And again, for those that have worked with us, you'll know that that's something that Altis has been doing over its 22-year history. That's something that we are very good at doing, which is making sure that people have the right data platforms, data warehouses, modern data platforms with which to be able to access data and interpret data. We've also very strong in that data storytelling and data visualization space, which again is another aspect. So what I would encourage and say is don't think that addressing the data literacy gap is just something that you can do through training. It may also require the construction of data platforms with the appropriate tools as well. So you typically wrap all of this up into a roadmap and plan. Very much you'd need to then look to, I guess, generate a business case or look to get funding. Certainly, though, the training would be maybe a quick and easy way to start. So just to summarize, and then once I've done with the summary, I'm quite happy to take any questions either via the chat or if you actually want to ask them, no problem. You'll need to unmute yourselves if you want to ask a question. Otherwise, I'll sort of look on the chat window. But let me summarize what I've covered today. So we did look very much at what data literacy is actually about. So to us, it's the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context. And certainly that data in context means the ability to effectively argue and challenge with data. So very important. Not forgetting, of course, that the ability to actually have access to be able to read and write data is also an important part of data literacy. Hopefully I've presented as well, there's a huge challenge, huge opportunity, and huge benefits as well for data literacy. Certainly we're seeing that in the Industry 4.0 is going to very much require data literacy as a critical skill to have. And certainly with that, we expect to see organizations that are high in data literacy will actually be very successful in this new Industry 4.0. So as again, I love the sort of stats and numbers and the benefits that data literacy can bring to an organization. I think hopefully I've shown you that it could have some pretty high return on investment and can massively uplift an organization. So obviously Altis can help, and I think there's two areas that we can certainly help with. There is data literacy training, and I've sort of showed the outline course and the content that includes. And what I very much like to do today is to make an offer for everyone that's attended or is listening to this webinar, where we will provide a 10% discount on our data literacy training. So if you're talking to your regional managers or Altis contacts, do say that is today's offer that we'd like to make available for the webinar attendees. There's the other area as well, which I also talked about, which was around the, I guess, a data literacy strategy and roadmap, which again I think is also quite a critical piece to start with. And maybe a way of tackling this might be to do some broad-based data literacy training, and then actually carry out a strategy and roadmap exercise to understand where people are at and maybe where some of the gaps are. So with that, thank you very much for your attention today and listening. Also to say before we tackle any questions, we do have a lot of webinars coming up as well. So do look on our website for future webinars. We've pretty much got a webinar a week over the next 4 weeks coming up. So look out for those. Otherwise, what I'd like to do is hand over for any questions. So do feel free to pop a question into the chat window, or do come off mute and ask. So over to the audience.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned about the different data personas. So do you mind just going over briefly, if you like, about what each of them do? So the data champions, the data learners, that sort of thing, please.
Yeah, sure. So those really were very much examples that we've got, and I think the important aspect is to look at, or I guess creating, it would be look at surveying your own organization and then potentially coming up with, I guess, suitable things like a data champion. I mean, for example, a data champion persona for us is going to be someone that is very much within a business unit that is effectively, I guess, marketing and selling how good data can be used. They're likely to have a high level of data literacy already, but they may well have frustrations around, say, the rest of their team not being able to see or use data effectively. So those are the sorts of areas. If you have a look at the links, you'll see that how you go about building up a persona is sort of focused very much on understanding the frustrations that persona would have. But I'd say, look, we've have created some data personas, but they may not be a direct fit for your organization. You'd be better to build up that survey and then try and identify some of the specific frustrations in your organization.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we will bring the session to a close. So I'd very much again like to thank you for your time. Hopefully I've given you a bit of a snippet of data literacy and why it's a hot topic at the moment, why it's important, and where you can start. As I say, don't forget there is an offer today, 10% discount on data literacy training that we can provide for your organizations. So looking forward to seeing you again on a future webinar. Thank you very much.